Hey guys, it's Steven from the Green Engineers, and today is 11/15/21, or November 15th, 2021. And I wanted to give a update. Some people are asking about a couple updates that I wanted to kind of clarify. So I wanted to get this done, as I haven't really done a video in a while, update video, and they've been pretty far and in between. So I'm going to go ahead and doing that. And for whatever reason, I need to find out from YouTube or something. Whenever somebody leaves a comment, some of them, like I could see that they commented, but they don't show up in the video, so I can't reply. So we have two that have come up, but I have not been able to reply. One was somebody was asking about the filament making service that I talked about in the last video. Go ahead. I'm going to mainly just be talking about stuff from the last video. So if you want more detail there, go ahead and go to that video. I'm not going to go too deep into detail again. I'm just going to talk about the status update of some of these other ones. And the other one was recently I just got a question about the water jet, the status of the water jet. Okay, so first, let's go ahead and answer those two questions. First, the guy was asking about whether or not I've gone to Protopasta and talked to these guys. Now, it turns out the funny thing, and then like I said, for whatever reason, I could see that he commented, but I cannot go and reply to the comment. The comment did not show up on the video, which is strange because I haven't set it up where I do not have it set up where I have to accept the comments. So it should just automatically show up, but it didn't for whatever reason. Anyways, so and then there's a third question about the shredder that I'm going to answer. The reclaimer, right, which is my shredder. So with that one, I don't know if you guys know, but I have family in Portland, right? And so I was able to go over to Washington to talk to the guys at Protopasta a long time ago, back in 2016. Back in 2016, I went back over there and talked to the guys. Originally, they were interested in my first version, my kind of janky extruder that was like open source, because originally they were looking for a extruder that they could experiment with materials and not have to take down one of their main extruder their main extruders, right? That's making them money, so they could use like a smaller extruder. And back then, when I first started in 2016 with the extruders concept, there wasn't very many, right? And a lot of them were made out of wood. Mine was the first one that was made out of metal. So, and a lot of them had printed parts. Mine had some printed parts, but all the things that held everything together was metal and welded together, etc., which didn't exist at the time. Most of the stuff was bolted to wood, like the fill extruder and stuff like that. And then the Lyman extruder. So the fill extruder and the Lyman extruder were kind of the only two extruders out at that point in 2016. So yes, I have been there. Does their comments on this kind of are relevant? No, not necessarily, because I plan on being quite a bit lower volume. I plan on making 2 spools a day, 7 days a week. So I'm doing 14, spools a day, while they could do like probably 50 spools a day, right? 50 spools a day, while I do 14 spools a week, right? So they would have like 3 to 4 times the volume that I would have, right? And so they're completely different things. And also, I think that because of their volume, it limits a lot of things that I would not be limited to do, right? For example, for them, it might be a limitation to do something such as a master spool, right? Such as this other one that I showed you with Slant 3D in one of my previous videos. I talked about the master spool, which is basically the spool comes apart, and then I just ship you a winding, and then you put the winding on your spool and then tighten your spool back up. So that saves money for the end user, and also we're all about green, right? So you don't waste as much plastic on the spools. And then you mentioned stuff about cardboard. Sure, cardboard, you could use that, which is what Protopasta uses, but you're still using trees and things like that. Now, could it be recycled cardboard? Sure. If that's the case, then that's great, right? But I'd rather have something that's robust, not going to tear apart, and that you could use multiple times. So you could use this plastic master spool, and then the idea is that the master spool would be made out of the same material of the material that you're loading onto it. So if you get ABS, you get an ABS master spool. And thus, when you dry it, it doesn't destroy the spool. So, for example, I had nylon that had a very high drying temperature and actually destroyed the spool before I could dry the nylon because the melting point of the glass transition temperature of the spool was lower than the than the drying temperature of the nylon, right? So that was no good. So, for example, if you have polycarb, which is like 110 C drying temperature, right? Or polycarb ABS, 110 C. So a standard ABS spool is going to melt, right? So you have to have a polycarb ABS spool or something with a higher glass transition temperature in order to dry polycarbonate ABS, right? Now, whether or not um, one of these cardboard spools would survive at that temperature, I'm not sure, right? But the issue with the cardboard spool is that it's one-time use. They don't have it to where you can use it multiple times and it survive. For the master spool, you could use it over and over and over again, right? And then so an update on that. I've been currently still trying to get a good polycarbonate ABS consistent output without having something go awry. So uh, I'm using, as you know, Green Engineers. One of the things that I'm going to be using for the service for making filament is I'm only going to either make plant-based plastics or recycled plastics. And the plant-based plastics is super saturated right now for the PLA and things like that. So I'm probably not going to bother with that for right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the higher end recycled material. So the first one I've been trying is polycarb ABS regrind. Not bought it online. Not sure where the guy is getting it from, but it's definitely reground chips. So I'm struggling to get those chips to get a constant output because, of course, compared to regular material, virgin material, those shapes are pretty consistent. In this one, you have everything from dust to quarter inch by quarter inch by eighth inch chips, right? And so when you have that varying in density almost, right, it causes the extrusion speed to increase and decrease very quickly and very rapidly. So it tends to bounce your extrusion all over the place. And when you're moving pretty slow, what happens is in order to maintain that diameter, your material movement speed is very slow. And if your winder is holding, or your dimensional control on your winder is holding at 1.75, and all of a sudden you hit a big chunk and you extrude very quickly, it binds up and it kind of creates this hook, right? And I think the main issue is that I'm not getting enough swell on the nozzle. I think the nozzle needs to be slightly bigger because what's happening is I'm not pulling the filament to size, right? So I'm actually just helping it go along rather than stretching it. Now, when I was doing ABS and some of these ABS and ASA and hips, I was pulling the material, so that never happened, right? I never had kinks or anything like that because I'm pulling it to length, so it's not like I'm just helping it along. So it's almost as if you had little fingers that's just helping along, but you're not pulling it taut to stretch it to length. So in this one, I'm not stretching the length while I was stretching it before. So I think I need a bigger die so that I can get the diameter to be larger and thus be pulling it more to size than just helping it along. Because what I've noticed is that I've actually been mostly on the low side, right? I've been stuck on the low side. So my tolerance currently has been like plus 5 and then like plus 0.05 millimeter, but minus 0.1, right? And so it tends to drastically be on the low side. So I think I need to increase my diameter size. So in the meantime, I'm going to keep messing with that. Otherwise, what I think I might do is I may order a 1.7 for this filament maker and a 1.75 and then drill it out and then try that. Or I'll step up to, or I'll just change to ABS regrind or polycarbonate regrind itself or ASA regrind, etc., etc. So that's the current thing. Now, to answer that question, is it relevant what Rotopos is doing? Not really, because I'm quite a bit smaller of a manufacturer, and I don't plan on becoming a big manufacturer of filament. So I have a little bit more leeway in doing some cool things, such as master spool and things like that, which I think would really um, really benefit a lot of people. Now, if you're doing 50 plus spools a day, you probably couldn't do that just by the scale, right? But I could pass those cost savings on to my customers and also have the cost savings on myself, right? Because then I'm making my own filament, so I can print my own spools. Because as I explained in the other video, these spools are very expensive to buy at a low volume. They're very cheap to buy at a very large volume, but you have to buy at a very large volume, whether they're plastic or the cardboard. Right? So yeah, um, still planning on doing the master spool thing. I'm still working on it, trying to get the extrusion. Right now, I have not got a successful full spool of polycarb ABS in a tolerance I like. I would like to have plus minus 5, right? So I think I need to up the size of the die. I'm just not extruding. I don't have enough swell as it comes out, right? Next. So next is somebody who's asking about the status on the water jet. So currently the water jet is on hold. Reason being is that I'm working on my workshop, right? And when the workshop is completed, then that will be the first thing that goes. That's one of the first things I'm going to be working on. I'm going to be talking about some equipment that I got that I'm pretty excited to talk about in this video as well. So as you guys know, I'm working on that workshop. It's an unconventional workshop. I'm not going to disclose what kind of workshop it is at this point, and I may never, but we'll have to see. Anyways, so that type of workshop is taking over about a year and a half for the build out because I'm doing this part-time right now. I have a full-time job, and right now we're in winter, and it's getting super cold, and as you could hear, I'm kind of not getting super cold, but getting dark very quickly. So by the time I get home, it's already dark. And as you can hear, I got a slight cold right now. So it's going to take about a year and a half to build out. We're already about a year in. It's probably going to be completed and 100% operational within the next 6 months. Now, I had another option come up recently to change to a different kind of shop dynamic that may be quicker to establish, maybe like 3 months from now, which already we're already a year into the other option. But that option I could probably build out in 3 months, but it doesn't have as much legs. So what I mean by that is that after a year, I would have to basically move. Now the other option, I could stay there for maybe 2+ years, no problem, right? And the first option is way cheaper to maintain, so I could put more money in equipment. The other option is quite a bit more expensive, right? And also the second option has way more liability and way more, quite a bit different downsides, but possibly very detrimental downsides. Because, for example, the first option I'm talking about, the one I'm a year into, I own the shop outright. The second option, I'm renting the shop. And when you rent something from someone else, they kind of have the control over you. So that kind of changes the dynamic quite a bit. So once I have the shop completed within probably this next 6 months, WaterJet would be in there and working, hopefully within that next 6 months. And that's when I would have all the equipment working and the shop up and running, right? So one of the things to help is that I need to do some equipment. I need to do some manufacturing with it, make some parts to finish the WaterJet. So I recently acquired a piece of equipment that I've been waiting to acquire for about 2 years, and one of my buddies had it, and he's been holding it for me. And something came up where he finally needed to get rid of it, get it out of his space for sure. So I volunteered to take it because I said I was going to take it, so I did take it. It is the CNC mill, which is going to be one of the main things for fixturing and also machining components for the filament maker, right? The version 2 of my filament maker, and also parts for machines, right? Machines that I use for manufacturing house, such as the WaterJet, such as making cutting heads or some sort of adapters or the cone and thread type sealing mechanisms, etc., etc. Holders for the orifice, whatever, right? It's a 1100 Tormach Series 3, not the MX, not the M, not the M+, but the old school Series 3, fully loaded with the 10-piece tool changer, the standard 5100 spindle, smart coolant, tool setter, fourth axis, not the micro arc, but the regular fourth axis. I might change that to a micro arc to get rid of some of the backlash. Fixture plate, upgraded coolant system, power drawbar, um, touchscreen, quick keys. I think they're called quick keys. Jog controller, um, all that kind of stuff, right? So now for the first shop, I'm going to need to build a custom for the option of the first shop, which is the main one that I'm going to be going over. I have to give them a notice for the second option within the next day, I think, which is the 15th. Which today, technically, I'm recording this 2:30 in the morning. Anyways, um, so the first option, I have to get them the answer for the second option today. I'm probably going to stick with the first option because of the longer legs and the slightly longer build time, but the build time, the things I have to do for both are pretty much the same, except for the first option. I get way longer. I own the shop. It's cheaper. I can spend more money on equipment, and I could stay in it way longer, right? So that's kind of what I'm leaning for. So most likely I'm going to go with that, right? um, so I have the Tormach, and it's going to be going into that first shop. I need to rebuild the enclosure. He had the enclosure, but we decided that he's going to help me build a new one, and I got a decent price for the machine itself. And I think it's going to do great for machining the screws for the extrusion screw for my own film maker version 2. And I think for other equipment around the shop, it'll be great, right? Fixtures and other things for manufacturing, right? As well as manufacturing equipment itself. So that's going to help me build out the water jet, the laser that I'm going to need to build, some production printers, which I'll talk about, and some enclosures and stuff around the shop, etc., etc. Okay, next piece of equipment. I just received my Sonic Mega 8K from Frozen. I got that Friday. Today's technically Monday. I've been trying to use the water washable resin, the gray from Frozen. I have not yet got a successful print out of it. I've run 2 prints. The first print was built into the SD card, which was for the Aqua 4K, which I don't have the Aqua 4K. So sure enough, I'll give that one the benefit of the doubt. But then I used Cheetah Box to do the second one, which was a 20 millimeter by 20 millimeter calibration cube, using the gray water washable model resin preset, and still have it stuck to the screen, the FEP screen, rather than the build plate. So I'm thinking it's just a leveling issue, and it does seem to be that's the case. That's just a leveling issue. So we have that piece of equipment. So obviously I'm gonna look into there's some recycling properties of that and how to build some stuff out of that, possibly for manufacturing, etc., etc. A very large piece of equipment. It's got a 15-inch screen in it, so you could do like 13 by 10 or something by 15 or 16 inches tall. So it's a huge resin printer, with the first ever resin printer with 8K screen. Also, I ordered the Frozen Mini 8K, which has a 7-inch screen, which should be coming sometime next year. So that's for smaller models. Now, mostly those, for the time being, will be for eventually making some resin classes on Udemy, and then also for making some money in the service of commercial 3D printing. So let's go ahead and talk about the commercial 3D printing that's been exploding as of recent. I paused for a little bit to print some fluorescent material for Halloween. So some, zombie arms and Frankenstein, etc., etc. And then you hit it with a black light and it glows. It was actually incredible, the prints that I got. Anyways, I was using orange, yellow, pink, and blue, and green, right? Yeah. So when I just restarted it here recently after Halloween, I've been getting some crazy amounts of orders. I think right now I'm producing 5 orders this week. So almost every day I have to turn in a order. I just got 2 or 3 more orders today, and I just ran a production run of 200 parts, and I did some braille cards, which I've never done before, super small, standing upright. And I think that this is going to be a great addition for when I develop my printer, uh, which is, I call it the EcoBase right now, is the running name, because it's been super difficult to print some of these things. And I could see so many places where a printer would trip up. And so some of these I would never think of printing, right? And some of these guys are coming up with some random stuff, and the stuff is very, very hard to print. For example, I have this thing for tubing, SAE tubing stuff, and it's 12 inches wide, which I can't print on my Stratasys. My Stratasys is only 10 by 10 by 12, right? So I have to print it upright, and then it has to put support under each of the circles, right? So you can put a piece of pipe in it and figure out what diameter it is, right? So that's super difficult for a printer to do, right? And the braille was only like 3/8 tall, but it was only 2 layers thick, right? And then to be able to do those little divots on the braille because it's standing upright, because you want to get the nice resolution on the circles, right? So all of these are very difficult to come up with randomly on your own printer. So this is going to be great for when I develop the EcoBase when I get into the shop in the next 6 months. So and also it pays basically for the development because I'm getting paid to try to print that model, right? And also they're throwing me something to print that I wouldn't have thought of originally. So it's kind of a win-win all around. And then when I don't have any orders, I can print whatever I want to test, right? And then at the end of the day, then you have somebody that can say, hey, I could show you when I release the printer, hey, these are the reviews that I got of this printer. Here are the number of prints that I've done, etc., etc. Right? I'll have some sort of like a track record of the printing quality of that printer when it's completed. And also I'll know, okay, how many failures have I had, etc., etc. While not being biased because I didn't pick the models to print. They sent me the models to print. I just gave them the size of the model. And pretty much right now I accept everything, right? I accept every print. I try every print. I think I've only failed 4 out of 20 times with the Stratasys. And the Stratasys is a very rigid machine. There's not a whole lot of customization that you can do. So it's all about orientation and material selection. Anyways, and also some hacking, of course. So now the third one is the shredder. So I think the shredder, I think it's fair enough to say that within 6 to 8 months I should be manufacturing it. I had 10 made out of standard steel that are in my storage. Now they're kind of rusting, of course, but I eventually plan on just making everything out of stainless, so that doesn't happen. But those are up for grabs as well. So I'm going to be looking into how quickly I can start manufacturing that one because that's going to be one of my first products I manufacture. Again, that one's going to be manufactured on the water jet. So let's go ahead and go over quickly so I can go to bed here. Number one, because I'm doing a low production on my filament for the filament selling service, I'm going to do recycling, which will allow me to bring my costs down because I can't buy in very large bulk, yet be able to sell recycled, which is on my business's objective and how would I say values. It follows my business's values, and I can do something like a master spool, right? Which I still need to renovate the sled 3D, which I think is really close, but it needs some tweaks. So I think that's good. Right now, I have not got a good polycarb ABS filament. I've gone through like a quarter spool and then have something tangle up or whatever, and it's had like kinks and stuff like that, and the diameter is kind of all over the place. So, and I'm not really stretching it to size, which I should be, right? It should just be changing how quickly it stretches it. It shouldn't be like just inching it forward. Because when I go out there and look at it, it's like a bow, right? It looks like an archery bow, And it's not supposed to be like that. It's just supposed to be a straight line, and it's pulling it to size, it's stretching it to size, which it's not doing right now. So I'll probably order another nozzle for it and increase the nozzle size and give that a shot. Anyways, next thing, and so I'll buy a 1.75, stick a feeler gauge in there, or stick a gauge pin, figure out what the diameter is, and then maybe increase it by 20% or something, give that a shot, or increase it a little bit at a time. Anyways, next thing I wanted to go over the equipment that I got. So let's go ahead and sum up the equipment. So I have the Sonic Mega 8K, just came in on Friday, so I'm still messing around with that. I still have the Stratasys. Eventually, with the new shop, I'm not going to have the Stratasys in it, so I'm going to be looking to either build or buy another printer. Right now, I think I'm leaning towards building it, right? Keeping the Stratasys up for right now, use the local makerspace. If I can't use the Stratasys, or donate the Stratasys to the local makerspace, and then build my own high temp enclosure one, and then also a production printer. So that way I would have my production printer, my high temp printer, my Sonic Mega 8K, and my Sonic Mega 8K Mini, right? Then I got the Tormach 1100, which is a big purchase for me. One of the most I've spent ever on an item. Actually, the most I've spent ever on one item, right? Never even spent that much on a car before. Anyways, so I have that. That's ready. That's waiting to go into the shop. So it's currently not operational. It's just in storage, basically. And so I'm waiting to have the shop ready to take that in. Yeah, so Sonic Mega 8K and the Tormach. And then for the shredder, that's probably going to be my first item that I sell. It's going to be within the next 6 to 12 months, about. So by the end of next year, 2022, or halfway through the year, I should have my shop going. And then that would also mean that my water jet is up and running, because I would be making the water jet with, making the shredder with the water jet. So that means I must have had the water jet done already. Which again, the water jet's like 50% done right now. I have most of the parts. I just need to do some machining, and then I need to make the body and the system that runs it, right? So the core, the Cartesian system, and then the water table, and the railing and stuff like that, and then make a couple fittings and things like that on it, right? So that's kind of my update at this point, which is November 15th, 2021. And so let me know your guys' thoughts on this, and hopefully that answers you guys' questions. Sorry that there's some glitch where your questions are not showing up on my videos. I see them pop up, but they do not show up on the YouTube video. I'm not deleting them. It's just they don't show up, and I try to answer them. I check everywhere, and it won't let me answer them, right? Anyways, all right, guys. Thanks for watching, and I hope to update you guys soon. Thanks. Bye.